Both Eskom and the National Nuclear Regulator have dismissed safety concerns raised by some activists over the corrosion of the Koeberg nuclear plant containment wall, saying they are fully cognizant of the issue and the wall is constantly monitored. I wonder if that's enough to satisfy the Koeberg Alert Alliance. With me now is the chairman, Peter Becker. Mr. Becker, good afternoon to you. What do you believe is wrong? What are you concerned about?
Good afternoon. Just to clarify, it's not actually the seawall, it's the containment buildings. So each nuclear reactor has a concrete dome built over it, and the point of that dome is if there's a problem like a loss of coolant or an explosion of the actual nuclear reactor, the idea is that containment dome would keep us safe and contain all the radiation. So that is the dome we're talking about, not the seawall. And what has been happening is that the salt from the sea air has been corroding that at a rate faster than expected. In Eskom's own words, it said this phenomenon was not fully understood when the plant was designed. So that is what we're concerned about, is the defense in depth at Koeberg, and is the containment building still at the strength it was designed to be or not?
Which leads on to the next question, and thank you for the clarification. What type of danger is then posed as a result of this?
So it's much like a seatbelt on a car. If your seatbelt's broken, there's no danger from the broken seatbelt, but the seatbelt is there for a reason, which is why all cars have them. If there was no need for a containment building at a nuclear plant, they wouldn't have made them. So it has a function there, and if nothing else goes wrong, everything should be fine. But if it's actually needed because of some other kind of incident, then potentially it's a problem if that structure is weaker than it was designed to be.
Is it easy to fix?
No. So what happens is that concrete gets its strength from a combination of compressive and tensile strength, and the rebar or the steel reinforcing inside it gives it the tensile strength. And once the bond is broken between the cement and the rebar, you no longer have that combination of strength. So it's a concern that this is deteriorating. It's not easy to repair. The only way to really repair it is to take the whole thing apart and replace it. But of course, I think Eskom's going to be very hesitant to undertake that kind of expense. And that's another thing, is that all these repairs that are going on at Koeberg, we keep getting told how cheap Koeberg is to run, but they're not releasing what they're spending on actually all these refurbishments and these repairs.
I presume that your organization, Koeberg Alert Alliance, is engaging both with Eskom and the regulator. If you are, what are you being told?
Well, firstly, that's a major problem. So I don't know if you read in the release, but they took 143 days to answer a PIA request about this damage to the concrete buildings. So the Promotion of Access to Information Act specifies 30 days maximum, and Eskom took 143 days. So it's like pulling teeth out of a chicken, or whatever the saying is. It's really difficult to get accurate information out of Eskom on this matter. So
what's your next move?
Well, I see that it has been picked up, and there's a media challenge going around saying if it's so good, why don't you let the media in to photograph it? And we hope to just keep pressure up on Eskom to release that, and particularly around the time that they're going to ask the public for input into whether or not to extend the life of Koeberg by another 20 years beyond its designed life. I think it's really important that they are transparent and open with the public about that. Because at the moment, there's more of a culture of secrecy and complacency at Koeberg, which is, don't worry, nothing will ever happen. We won't need the containment building, so we don't really need to repair them. So I think that needs to come under public scrutiny. And we also need, as South Africa, I think, to look at the Promotion of Access to Information Act and the fact that it's being so ignored and abused by large companies like Eskom. Maybe we need to look at the information regulator and why that office is not functioning. But there's a problem with transparency, accountability, and oversight in state-owned enterprise.
You've put key questions to Eskom. Among those questions, what is the most pertinent? What are you most concerned about? What do you need to know from them?
Well, for example, we'd like to know the extent of the damage. The report that they did release after 143 days, about half of the technical content was blacked out. So they're keeping that secret, and we find that's entirely unacceptable. In the Promotion of Access to Information Act, there's a clause that says if it's in the public interest, it may not be withheld. And we believe the safety of Koeberg is in the public interest. So the first step is Eskom needs to be transparent. They need to respond timeously to PIA requests for information. That's the first step.
I understand the seatbelt analogy, but what is the worst case scenario if the erosion continues?
Yeah. So the worst case scenario is the containment building is needed. In other words, there's a loss of coolant, there's a rupture of one or both of the reactors, and there's an explosion inside the containment building. So if it can contain that, that's good. But you're asking about the worst case. If there are cracks already and it can't contain that and the radiation leaks out, it means the next level of the defense in depth would have to be activated, and that's an evacuation plan. So that's estimated to involve about 320,000 people who would have to be moved out of that area potentially. And if you look at long term as well, what effect will that have on the economy? Not only the human suffering that's involved in that, but the Western Cape wine industry, for example, would collapse, because after hearing that, nobody would want to buy Western Cape wine. No one will want to come on holiday to Cape Town, so the tourism industry would collapse. There's really a huge and potentially catastrophic effect if something goes wrong, which really means it's the time to look, is it worth it? Is it worth the risk of keeping Koeberg running?
Thank you for raising it. Koeberg Alert Alliance Chairman Peter Becker. I guess the ball is in Eskom's court now.